What we are going to discuss on the dais today, and I have a very esteemed panel for this, is LEI, the Legal Entity Identifier. From regulatory mandates to marketplaces, the untapped potential of LEI in digital economy. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce to all of you the moderator for this discussion. Please welcome Mr. Vikas Pawar, Country Business Manager, India, GLEIF, the Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation, on stage. Hi. Welcome. And our speakers for this session, we have Mr. Alexandre Kech, Chief Executive Officer, GLEIF, Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation. We have Dr. Pramod Varma, Co-Founder and Chief Architect, Fintech Labs. He will be joining us in a short while. Also, Mr. Iyer, Founder and CEO, Varma. Mr. Hare Krishna Jena, Managing Director, Clearing Corporation of India. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give all of our panelists a huge round of applause and welcome them warmly.
Thank you very much. I think it was a wonderful introduction. I think I was not expecting this to be done, but wonderful. I think great for me that I need to now touch upon a lot on the background of LEI. But first and foremost, thank you very much everyone for joining us today, and much of a relief for me. Dr. Pramod Varma is here. Thank you, Pramod, for joining us on time. I think. Yeah. Okay. I think it goes without saying, I think a lot of appreciations and gratitude to the organizers of Fintech Festival this time, the Fintech Convergence Council, for considering this topic into the agenda and giving us this opportunity. So thank you very much. So before I start the questions, I would probably like to give you some of a context of the discussion today. So as probably it has already been introduced that LEI was formulated, or probably in the aftermath of the global financial crisis when the Lehman Brothers collapsed. So regulator across the globe felt that there is a requirement to have a common identification scheme which can have precise identification on the legal entities, not only within the country but also across the globe. So this has probably come across as a regulatory response support from G20 Financial Stability Board, and there has always been a great support which we received from many financial institutions and our regulators across the globe. A lot of work has already been done by multiple central banks in terms of bringing right mandates. If you look at India, there is already a lot of mandates probably which creates a foundational level support for LEIs to uptake. But in today's discussion, our topic would probably be to understand and probably delve into how we can unlock the value of LEI beyond compliance and not just a regulatory tool for corporates and banks. So I would very quickly introduce our panel. We have our CEO, Alexandre Kech, who has joined us today, and the first time from the capacity of the CEO in GLEIF. He is at the helm of affairs at GLEIF, looking at all initiatives across the LEI. He was earlier with SWIFT for a very long time, and prior to joining GLEIF, he was leading the digital initiative at the 6th Digital Exchange. He was with also BNY Mellon and worked with various organizations before. So welcome, Alex. Thank you very much for coming to India and joining this panel. Next, we have Mr. H.K. Jena, who is the MD and CEO of Clearing Corporation of India Limited. He is also the director and the boards of LEIL, which is the 100% subsidiary of CCIL, which is also the accredited LEI issuer in India and also recognized by RBI under the PSS Act. So he brings along a very rich experience from banking. He has been an industry veteran. He was with State Bank of India and he was the deputy managing director in SBI in charge of global initiatives there. So thank you very much, sir, for joining the panel. We have Dr. Pramod Varma. I don't think he requires an introduction. He's already a very known personality in India. He has done a lot of work for India. He is the man behind India Stack. He has created the architecture behind UPI, Aadhaar. But for us, he is first our board member. So he has recently joined our board. And thank you very much, Pramod, for joining us. We have Ramaswamy Iyer joining us today. He is a veteran. He also brings a lot of experience from the supply chain and cash management point of view. He is the founder of Jena, which has recently also got the RBI license for NBFC. They also house an international trade finance platform called VTX in GIFT City, which is, I think, the first license you only got in GIFT City. So thank you, Ram, for joining us. So it was a long introduction. I think coming quickly to the discussion today, probably my first question, the opening question is to Alex. Alex, I think you know already that LEI is more of a regulatory response. Please provide your insights on the journey, the last decade, how LEI evolved as an ecosystem, and what is GLEIF probably doing to unlock the value beyond compliance. Over to you.
So I'm not going to talk about 10 years of GLEIF because that would be too long, but I'll try to summarize it in a few components. So when the financial crisis occurred in 2008, there was a realization that companies didn't have clear visibility of who they were dealing with and who was owning what companies. So as mentioned, the G20 decided to create a global system to identify legal entities around the world, so it's like a passport for companies, if you wish. And they decided to do that as a public good. So the public good has been defined by the Financial Stability Board in the following way. So we have the GLEIF, the Global LEI Foundation I'm the CEO of, who is in charge of managing the system, accrediting a network of LEI issuers who are in charge of verifying legal entities and issuing this identifier to them after verification. So all LEIs, all legal entities having an LEIs have been verified and validated before being issued an LEI. That's quite important to mention. The other aspect of the system is that we have a regulatory oversight committee of 70 regulators from 50 countries that make sure that we maintain that public good nature of the global LEI system. It's a non-for-profit. It needs to be for the public. All data must be available for free for everybody to consume and use in their day-to-day risk management tool, onboarding tool, ERP systems, and so on and so forth. That data is accessible via APIs, file downloads, lookups on the gleif.org website, all for free. So any vendors, any banks, any corporates who wants to leverage that information can do so in completely free. So, and we finally have a board which represent the private sector, 18 pro bono directors who brings expertise in different industries, and Pramod is one of them, to help us at GLEIF to define the right strategy in terms of where should the LEI goes next. So we went from 0 LEIs issued 10 years ago to more than 3 million legal entities having an LEI today. It started with one specific use case called OTC derivative reporting, OTC derivative transaction identification, and this has slowly moved into the entire capital market as an identifier that is recognized globally in many jurisdictions with more than 200 mandates today. And now it's moving to other use cases in payments, in trade, supply chain management. We will discuss that a bit more in detail. But what is important to mention is that the LEI is not only for financial institutions, any legal entities who can be verified in any countries on this planet can have an LEI issued to them. From financial institutions to corporates, to small and medium-sized enterprise, to sole proprietorship. I have an LEI for my Airbnb business in France, one-person show. So anybody who has a business who is registered and can be verified can have an LEI to enable this global discoverability of their company, and also to enable many processes around regulatory reporting, but not only, accelerated KYC into banks, presenting yourself as a company and prove that you exist as a company.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I think it would be great if you can also touch upon what we are doing around the digital ID credentials via LEI.
Sure, so that's the next evolution of the LEI system. So in a previous panel, we talked a lot about fraud and the need for a security layer for all systems to work. And in the legal entity world or the business world, we also need that. There are a lot of frauds of people impersonating CFOs, CEOs. There is a lot of fraud and fake emails that you receive from your banks when it's not coming from your banks. So all those challenges needs to be tackled, and verifiability needs to be put in place, especially on digital platforms such as the internet, blockchain, or other platforms. So what we've built on top of the LEI system is a protocol called the Verifiable Legal Entity Identifier that enables companies to verifiably prove who they are on digital platforms by the receiver. So you receive a verifiable credential and you know that the entity in front of you is the entity it pretends to be, but also for people acting on behalf of the legal entity to prove that they have received delegation of authority to do so, which is quite unique. No digital certificates or verifiable credential system today enables autonomous chaining of delegation of authority from individuals to entities, and that's what the VLEI enables. It enables also not only individuals like CFOs, CEOs to prove they are effectively the CEOs and CFOs of a company, but also any staff of that company to prove that they are acting on behalf of that company. Clients of that company can also receive credentials to say, I can prove I am a client of this bank, or I'm a client of this corporate. And finally, as we are going into automation, credentials can also be assigned to AI agent systems, robots, IoT devices, to prove that data coming from those instruments or activities done by those instruments are linked, cryptographically linked to an entity and can be sourced from that entity, which means, of course, accountability, which means, of course, security and discoverability and verifiability of what you are doing online.
Thank you, Alex. I think it was very insightful. So let us come from a global perspective to the domestic perspective, I think, and there's no one better than Mr. HK Jena, which can provide us a good background. So, Mr. Jena, my question to you is, I think being CCIL, you have been the early movers and you have been chosen by the central bank to support this global cause. My question probably to you is to touch upon probably the trajectory you have seen and the support you received from RBI and the regulators in India, how it unfolded, how the trajectory happened, how the uptake, maybe the lessons you learned, and you have always been, you are also a veteran banker. Maybe you can share some insights, maybe some recommendations and suggestions as to how LEI can be used in the banking ecosystem better. What are the specific areas wherein LEI can be used and the value can be unlocked? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vikas. I think most of the sessions which I have seen from the peripheries, I find that a lot of people would be interested. Probably they see either business or risk in the session. That probably brings in a lot of excitement. But here, since I see a lot of unoccupied seats, I have a feeling that probably this session doesn't generate either business or risk. And here, of course, I see that many familiar faces. So, business with familiarity certainly is fraught with a lot of risk. Notwithstanding that, I think, as Alex has rightly pointed out, the risks which were rediscovered, not that those risks didn't exist, the risk exists before the global financial crisis. But the risk, when the events got crystallized, when we worked upon that, then certainly to have connectivity in place either with the product launcher, or the ultimate consumer of the product. So all those things, the risk used to reside at each point, and to have that connectivity, anyway, the LEI was perceived to be a solution, and it was introduced. So naturally, when the central bank of the country here is the banking regulator as well, so the regulator had to classify the various segments of business on the basis of risk. How do we establish connectivity so that all those risk points, they are at least captured, may not be at one go, but in a phased manner. So initially, it was thought that, okay, we'll start with derivative transactions. Then we went into other transactional mode, including the credit. Credit also, we started that those who would be having credit limit of certain size from the banking sector. Then we have come down to as low as 5 crores, which is just above $500,000. They are covered. So this phased approach certainly brought in a lot of LEI adoption in the country. I think roughly our LEI issuance, LEI means I am not saying that the LOU in India has issued 10%, but the Indian entities received about close to 10% of the total LEIs issued globally. Although our GDP numbers would be around 4.2%, of course our population is very large, and first of all we will have to convince our population that whether they need LEI or something else, that anyway the people will have alternatives and choices in place. So all those mandates, it seems a little obvious from outside world that only because there was RBI mandate or the regulatory mandate either from SEBI or IID or from others, the adoption rate could be higher. You see, nowhere in the globe, unless people have fear of non-compliance, they will not do it. Probably that is the reason that why many other places the adoption rate is so less. Second thing is that if we feel that incentivization of adoption or disincentivization of the non-adoption, then it has to be commercially viable propositions. So far, probably the identifier in these areas who could identify certain business prospects, they have not been able to do that. But certainly regulatory mandate has helped. Of course, it has its downside effect as well, but mostly we have seen the upside because it's at the initial stage of LEI adoption. Thank you.
I think it's a very interesting perspective which Mr. Jena has touched upon. Probably from a regulatory standpoint, if you look at India as a jurisdiction, we are the unique jurisdiction which has supported LEI like anything. We are the only jurisdiction which has brought LEI in the PSS Act, Payment and Settlement Systems Act. We have mandates probably covering a lot of areas and segments in the financial ecosystem, be it derivatives, be it credit, borrowers, be it foreign portfolio investors, be it cross-border, be it domestic payment messages. So I think RBI has done a lot of job already for us at a foundational level. But I think now the time for GLEIF is, and every one of us as an ecosystem, to look at how we can unlock the value of LEI, not only beyond compliance, but also at the other areas, which is outside the financial market. So I think we have Pramod here, who is also one of our recent board members, and nobody understand design architecture, interoperability, protocols better than him. So my question to Pramod is, I think you know the system now quite well, what GLEIF is, what is the regulatory ecosystem, the governance framework we have. What do you think, how LEI fits into the next wave of TPI? And maybe you can also share some insights on how LEI or VLEI can fit into the Finternet framework, which probably you are envisioning to build.
Yeah, I think people who are, one of the reasons why I think India has been very aggressive in adopting digital in general and digitally verifiable systems in general is to push the economy, the velocity of the economy. So I think Indians are, in one sense, that's the reason why, there's nobody in this room who would have now thought about why Aadhaar is needed, or why PAN is needed, or why DigiLocker is needed. We take it for granted. Today we take it for granted. We walk through the airport on DigiYatra and we submit through DigiLocker, and this is just getting accelerated. So the idea of identity and verifiability, verifiable credential, Indians have seen the value on the consumer side with DigiLocker and Aadhaar and everything else. We have not seen yet that in the legal persons or entity side, businesses side. Business entity locker is announced, by the way. India has announced entity locker that's come alive in DigiLocker that allows entities to have a locker of their own and businesses to have their locker. This is exceptionally important and very important for India to collapse the cost of trust and cost of verification and cost of compliance. If you don't collapse that cost, we will continue to have that large access issue. I mean, how do you 50 million merchants or 75 million merchants? We are talking about 3 million now, I think, right? 3 million LEIs, but UPI already digitized 50 million merchants. So look at the number. India is so large that we have no other means to get to the businesses or access. What access? Access to opportunities, business opportunities, access to capital, access to investment opportunities, access to protection like insurance. All these access must be unlocked. If you don't unlock it, we will have a significant, the haves and the have-nots, right? We will not have the bottom of the pyramid taken care. So the SME financing, financial inclusion, SME participation is very, very, very high need for us because of the long tail. So I think it is obvious in India's sense why India is aggressive on LEI as well. Because I think it is very clear as a fourth largest economy, nearly there, with 20% of the world, we are a globally transacting nation. And with geopolitical situation today with the US, we are even more global. Okay, we are hugging everybody. We always are multipolar, multi-aligned, and we are independent, sovereign, and Prime Minister talks about reliance by 2027 and 2047, and meeting aspirational need, no more inclusion needs. I think we are starting to close the gap of inclusion needs. Now it's about the decade of aspirations, right, to be able to unlock that aspiration. So I think it is very important that we do not look at LEI as a mandate, must do, painful, forced upon me. I think we must flip that completely to say how do we create identity as an empowerment construct and look for those use cases that will allow people to queue up and apply. We got to Aadhaar in 5.5 years. We had 1 billion people got Aadhaar, 1 billion, okay, who stood in line, applied. So because they found a value in that. I think we have talked about it many times. Alex is brilliantly pushing that agenda with his new, role there. Board is supporting it. I think we should really push for incentive-driven. Why should they apply? Why should an company have LEI? Why should they have the, saying, I have to have it, I must have it, because when I have it, it unlocks efficiency, opportunity, ease of doing business, discoverability, and other things as Alex was mentioning. It's a no-brainer, complete no-brainer, by the way. In my mind, it's a bloody no-brainer that companies should have entity. Now, India particularly, though, has our own PAN as an identity. GSTN has a, sub-identity in one sense as an establishment identity. So we do have digitally verifiable identifiers in India. So one way to look at, and maybe CCIL can play a good role there, is to look at our PAN 2.0 that is coming up. Now, I think pretty much I heard I walked out of the keynote and by Nandan Nilekani, and Nandan was mentioning a big unlock. He used to get entities, identity locker, credentialing for entities. We consumers, we pushed really well with Aadhaar and DigiLocker and all that thing, right? So this is coming. India is going to do it. India is going to definitely do entity identity for local. Then our job is to not replicate in LEI, to create a wrapper. So that means in India, companies who have PAN 2.0, verifiable in your DigiLocker, entity locker, should have a one-click LEI access. Then you ask the question, so is the application and friction there? Just everybody should have it. And the second thing is look for use cases, because you alluded to that. Use cases, whether it's in customs clearance, whether it's in money movement, whether it's in any other investment money coming in, basically goods, people movement, everything else that. And that delegated, I think Alex, the point Alex was mentioning about delegated authorization, even India that's missing. There is a proposal actually on the table in India to actually get digital delegations to be implemented. Because who is signing on behalf of companies is not obvious to us, and so we go back to paper, right? So I think these are, in my mind, because inevitability, no-brainer. But I think we must not come down from a compliance and mandate and push perspective. It ought to be a pull. It has to be a pull, natural pull, saying that, it makes sense to get it. And I remember, I'll end with that. In 2010 or 2009, Aadhaar project, when we started, we were in Rajasthan, deep Rajasthan. And we asked one of the persons, why do you want an identity? Why do you want a government, one more identity? Local government is giving you no identity. You have other paperwork and everything else. He said, sir, I already have 3 buffaloes. And if you are giving me a free buffalo, will I not take it? What is the meaning of that? It's not about the buffalo. He was looking at it as an economic asset. He was seeing identity as an asset, not a burden or a compliance burden. He's saying, having it, why would I take it? Having it will open doors to opportunities, doors to open bank account, which is exactly what played out. Exactly what played out. eKYC, Jan Dhan. We just cruised along so beautifully. We must do the same thing for business. And we are perfectly in India, because if you don't pull this off, okay, moderator, you have all the pressure, okay? This is a no-brainer for India. When India is opening up trade, aggressively growing economic growth, LEI is a no-brainer.
Thank you, Pramod. I think that is exactly we discussed last week in Frankfurt. I think no-brainer. So I think there is a lot to catch up. There's a lot of headroom, probably, which is untapped. And in order to make the things population scale, we need to probably figure out synergies with the DPI initiatives which are happening in India, be it PAN 2.0, be it the Bharat Trade Network. So every digital initiative which is around creating a new DPI, we need to be in sync with them. So completely agree with you, and will be definitely taking your guidance ahead. Now probably we have Ram, who has a great experience, and he has been the founder of Ayana. He brings along a lot of experience working with SMEs, supply chain. Probably I want to ask you, Ram, I think your perspective on how LEI can unlock the value for SMEs and how it can democratize, easy finance, which is probably one of your main objective being Vayana.
Right. I just want to remind Dr. Pramod Varma, he was on the interview panel when we applied for a GSP license in the very first days. But he also left 3 words that I just want to pick up on in our own journey as a trade finance and a supply chain finance company. I think he's talked about identity, he talked about incentives, he talked about asset, and overall cost. Now, when we started 8 years back, we had a very simple goal that how do we create affordable trade credit to every business in a supply chain. And that meant all the 70 million businesses in India. We don't have an exact number, but there are about 63 million micro, nano businesses, and there are about remaining about 7 million of slightly more larger businesses. That's roughly the numbers. And if you really want to provide affordable cost credit to them, I think we decided that digitization was the best way. We figured out how to kind of digitize trade documents. We did all that. Then we realized compliance, e-invoice was going to come in. And we decided that we would be a GSP. But I think first and what we observed is the whole issue of identity. The amount of time that was getting spent in just establishing the identity of a counterparty, verifying the identity of a counterparty, making sure that you could actually credit the bank account that he said or take money from the bank account that he was sending it to you, all was adding significantly to cost and to time. One of the, I think, interesting things I have at least experienced in this whole micro, small business side of the initiative, 63 million businesses, is that while they have tough time accessing formal credit, they have a bigger problem. They are really bandwidth constrained on time. You have one guy who's running a small shop, 100 square feet. He's practically sitting from 7 in the morning to 10 or 11 at night, taking more decisions than most people, especially on this dais, probably even take during a week. And then you have to tell him that you have to do one more thing to get yourself into business. And I think one of the key problems we have had in identity in India for businesses, and I know the problem has been solved for the individuals, is really this whole KYC business and getting through these whole, you literally feel like you're going to root canal without anesthesia, right? I mean, as a process. And I think for us, it became very evident that you needed an mechanism to kind of not only prove your identity, but also to telegraph your identity to your counterparties, that this is something that is verified and can be taken at face value. And I think when we acquired a company called Rubix in 2023, one of the main reasons was that they were very, very big in LEI validation. And we thought that with every business that we were bringing onto the trade network, we would love to kind of get the LEI validated for them. And I think one of the journeys that I've seen in this whole process in the last 2-3 years is that, and I think he kind of espoused it very, very clearly, this has to become an asset. It is not enough just to say that you have a 20-digit alphanumeric number and that's going to be something that anybody can verify. It has to be something almost akin to saying, I'm proud to have it because this gives me greater opportunity. And I think the real important lesson for me at least is that, and I think, well, Aadhaar came in, but I think Jandan coming after that and the DBT, kind of rolling out on the thing, were I think very powerful incentives for the Aadhaar movement also. And I think you will need to create the similar kind of incentives even around the LEI framework. I think in India, we are going to be well done. I mean, we are, as he said, exceptionally fast in digitization, in adopting digitization. We love this idea of getting numbers We love the idea of kind of subscribing to the public infrastructure. Unfortunately, it is not the same elsewhere. And I think one of the big things that is happening in this world, which is now getting multipolar, is that trade, actually the doors have opened for us. Otherwise, there were very strict corridors of trade that we were operating. Now it's kind of opened up for us because now there is no longer a single well-established supply chain. If you want to do that, we need to get everybody around the world, and I was talking to Alex, or Alex was telling me before about the adoption of LEI in Europe. So to me, I think one big incentive for Indian small business is to have people outside asking for the LEI number and taking the LEI number as a credential of someone trustworthy to do business with, which means a lot of businesses in Europe, US, other corridors will actually have to be really influenced to take the LEI. So I think one of the things we have to do is, like Finternet, I guess, is a global initiative, not an India initiative. I know we are exporting DPI elsewhere. We have to also espouse this cause of LEI adoption everywhere in the world. I think if we can do that, the last point I just want to leave is that a lot of time is also now, I think, especially spent around AML. A lot of time is just spent around bank identities, the banking systems and the account systems. And it'll be wonderful to see LEI not just as a identity, but opening up multiple different services attached to that LEI that allows people to kind of verify, to get information about you, know that at any point in time they're dealing with a trustworthy counterparty. And if you can open up and pretty much like I think what Aadhaar did in terms of being the bedrock on which a number of services could get stacked up, we will need to think about LEI as a placeholder on which you can kind of stack up a number of services. So that really would be my ask, Alex, from you.
Thank you very much. I think that was very insightful. I think there's a whole list of things probably we need to focus on now. But considering we don't have much time now with us, very quickly I'll probably would be asking, yeah, please.
I think, so the challenge in business is the trust. The credibility factor of LEI should be retained. To retain the credibility factor in LEI, so we will have to work together to ensure that the quality of inputs collected by the LOUs, they are uniform in quality at least. If we cannot do that, then naturally the credibility on relying on, say, LEI for either to establish connectivity to at least trace the risk factors for a banker or any other financial institution will be a challenge. This part I think more so you will have to look into. And very clearly, like I say that whatever LEIs have been issued to the entities in India, about 60% of that have been issued by LOUs located outside India. The ROC Charter very clearly defines that before, if there is no LOU in that jurisdiction, then others can issue, but subject to the regulatory approval from here. So that part I think we will have to look into. And when it comes to the demand factor, the use of LEIs by various entities, if that can go up, so naturally the supply side people also will come forward to have their LEIs.
Thank you, sir. I think it's a very important message for us as well. And that was exactly my question. Thank you for probably providing an answer before I asked it. So a very quick question to each one of you, because we don't have much time left. Maybe if you can summarize in one line. We know we have a whole list of priorities, but what is the next step? Maybe Alex, you can start. We should be doing probably to unlock the value of LEI.
Well, I think it has been said very eloquently by the other speakers, is move from I have to have an LEI to I want to have an LEI because it's useful for me as a legal entity to unlock, as you said, services in a secure way. Of course, it will always be around data quality as well. So the system today is trusted and needs to remain trusted. And for that, we will always work with the community, the ROC, Regulatory Oversight Committee, but also the private sector, to ensure that that quality is there and remain there. That's the two main lessons of the conversation here. Keep the system growing and keep it trusted, and also multiply the use cases to ensure that legal entities are eager to have an LEI and maintain their LEI current, to ensure that because it serves their needs and not only the regulatory's needs.
Maybe to you, Pramod.
There are two quick points. One, it's interesting to ask this question. Who ensures quality of data of the Aadhaar record?
Yeah.
Aadhaar holder.
Aadhaar holder.
Why?
Yeah.
Because it's your incentive to make sure that your address is up to date.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Data quality comes down to usefulness. Yes. If that record is useful to them, and if they're using it every day,
absolutely,
that business will make sure it is correct.
Yeah.
Because if anybody else takes a challenge, we will never get it right. So somebody asked in 2010, who is going to make sure data quality of Aadhaar? Nandan said, people. Because it will be useful to them. It's your name. You want to change your name wrongly, feel free. It's a very important flip thinking, okay? It's very important to think. And second, maybe Alex, one thing the amount of cybers, we saw that, and everywhere we were all there. Here also you can see that. I think there's an enormous new wave of payment rails with stablecoin and everything else that is brewing globally. SWIFT announced with 30 banks, they're on-chain. So maybe before they run away to something else, make VLEI a native asset in the tokenized world, and then come back to the traditional world. Maybe that is an opportunity for us to work through. Maybe my suggestion is to look for, that's a brand new opportunity. Maybe we just slam dunk it.
Definitely working on it, as you can.
Good. Yeah, all the best.
To you, Ram.
Marketing.
Okay.
Please market it. When we talk about Aadhaar and everything, people don't remember or forget. There's a lot of positive attributes that were communicated. Sometimes you need to communicate it before people recognize it. LEIL is a very obscure, Mr. Jena said, very few seats were occupied. Now I'm thankful that by the end of it, I think a lot more seats got occupied. But we have to make this a very, very important thing to understand what is the benefit of it. And I think one of the things we have to do is to market it. And I would say India is probably easier to market because we already now know the benefits of identity. Please do market it to the rest of the world. I think that's very, very important.
A great perspective. I'll probably consider this as probably creating more awareness around it. Yeah. Great insights from great speakers. I don't think we have much of a time.
We'll open the floor for questions.
Yeah.
If you have a question, please put your hand up. We'll pass on the mic to you.
So any questions? I think more than welcome.
Thanks for the session. So I am from bank. So rightly pointed out, today LEI is mostly used as a compulsion, right? Because of the RBI mandate and all this. So what is the new landscape we can see by using this as underwriting and credit assessment as a part of KYC stack? Any roadmap you see in near future so that, beyond this mandate by RBI, how it can be a use case for the banks or financial institutions or maybe fintechs also?
I think Mr. Jena can answer it. I think he has been a veteran banker. Yeah.
I think we have APIs, so whatever data would be stored there, those data, of course, you can use it to establish connectivity, to see that their subsidiaries and other offshoots. So all those information, including some information on the financials also will be there. So those part, that's why I said that unless they are credible, probably your credit assessment, depending on that, would be a challenge. But I hope that whatever LEIs are issued from out of India, the LEIs, then certainly we follow the standard which needs to be followed. But one thing I just wanted to say, that when the financial market goes up in the ladder of complexity, many a time it is because the simplicity of the factors is made known to the users or the investors. Unless there is some complexity, probably the profit element of the people who would be issuing that or who would be selling that would be low. So for that reason, the complexity can be certainly, the myth of that could be unfolded only when we have adequate and up-to-date information. That onerous responsibility, if we leave it only to the users, probably we carry or we are fraught with risk.
Yeah,
Can
I
you
think there's
pass
one
on the
more
mic?
question. Do we have room for questions?
Yes.
I think you'll get the mic.
You were
yeah.
getting the mic.
Just want to know, like, what is the additional standard compared to the existing GST/PAN/ the company's identification numbers, etc. And what is the additional comfort or authenticity the other party who is dealing with this holder of LEI is going to get?
So maybe on the governance. So the legal entities are free to choose an LEI issuer who is accredited to in the country to go for obtaining an LEI. There is a very good one in India next to me, absolutely. That would the information is provided to the LEI issuer. The LEI issuer is responsible for verifying and validating that information. So the level of validation is quite intense in the sense that it needs to be, for example, verified against authoritative source of information. And then there is this level 2 information, which is very important, where my neighbor is doing an excellent job, and they've received a prize last year because of that, in verifying the level 2 information, meaning children-parent relationship between a parent company, subsidiaries, etc. And all that information needs to be maintained on a yearly basis. And it's important that it's owned by the owner, because it's bringing responsibility to the owner to ensure, owner of the data, meaning the legal entity, to ensure that that data is always up to date, and to go back to the LEI issuer if something needs to change. We are looking at ways of automating that regular updates that can happen to legal entities through leveraging open data standards that exist in some jurisdictions between business registry information and LEI issuer information. But that's always something we're working on, to ensure that the quality can be trusted and that you can leverage the LEI for initiating a KYB, for example, to answer your question, and do processes that require the right level of assurance. I hope I'm answering your question.
I think just to add to you, probably, I think Mr. Jena has also highlighted, probably LEI is considered more as a regulatory checkbox, regulatory trick, probably because it is a RBI mandate, we need to have a LEI which is always renewed. But I think what probably I would want you all to look at is the APIs. It has no charge. You must consume our APIs, look at data, the level 1 data and the level 2 data probably it is bringing. And also, we also have a mapping arrangement with multiple global identifiers. Like if LEI, if there is already a ISIN issued to an LEI code, you will probably, it will be populated against it. We have a mapping arrangement with S&P, we have a mapping arrangement with SWIFT, the BIC and MIC code. So you also get all those data fields probably if you use the APIs properly. Yeah.
We'll take one last question from the gentleman.
One last question, okay.
Jen, thank you very much for the insights about LEI. What Dr. Pramod said is one way of trying to go ahead and make LEI popular among the businesses. Of course, the MSME can also go ahead and come and want an LEI, which is great. I want to know the views and experiences that you've had with getting banks interested, because what I find is typically banks say that if the other bank is doing it, then we like to do it. Or if the other bank is doing all the hard work behind this, then that is better, because then we can sort of ride the bandwagon of LEI without really having to be the first one to start it. I just want to know your thoughts and experiences on it.
Maybe, so we do have a model in the LEI system called the validation agent model, which are banks who are leveraging their own KYB process to get an LEI on behalf of their customers. If that corporate customer doesn't have an LEI, they're working with an LEI issuer, obviously, to do that because they can't issue themselves the LEI. So there is definitely an interest in many banks. I can mention a few: JP Morgan, BNP Paribas, Citibank, generally global banks today, but we also have regional banks. All 3 out of the 4 Australian banks, for example, are validation agents. They see the benefits in helping their customer acquire an LEI and even maintain that LEI information on behalf of their customer. So that exists, so there is a bank interest in doing that because it facilitates their onboarding. It also enables them to establish a unique identifier across their various systems that is recognized not only internally, but also externally, which is quite important, and also streamlined on their data management. Clearly, any banks in the room who is interested to become a validation agent, feel free to join us. And maybe that will push other banks to do the same, and that will multiply the issuance of LEIs for the benefits of corporate companies and other financial institutions in India.
Mr. Jena, you would like to add something here? Yeah.
Actually, banks, if they do not look into the commercial benefits, they can come forward, and not for the short-term benefits, it's a longer-term benefits. So they should come forward. They have easy access to information. Those information will come handy for their credit assessment, for the risk assessment of the clients. All those things would be a lot better. And we have a lot of ease in issuing the LEIs also. We have been trying to partner, but it is such a small commercially, it's a commercial, almost a non-entity so far as banks are concerned. They have large commercial values from elsewhere, from different services. But it's certainly a good thing. If you are from a bank, then certainly we can tie up, and whatever help and support is required, we'll provide, both from supply side and demand side. APIs, of course, you can use it, and you can create your own database on the basis of the information provided by the applicants.
Thank you very much. I think we have already exceeded our time, and we need to be compliant here. We can't just expect others to be compliant. So if I have to very quickly summarize, I think for me, it is like we need to bring the right ecosystem enablers into the play. Probably there is a lot of headroom probably to cover, but it requires right people to be in the ecosystem to help us create the right environment and to tweak things around it. So thank you very much to all our esteemed panelists, and thank you very much for the patient hearing. Yeah, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's put a hand together for our panelists and our lovely moderator. I request all of you to please take a step forward for a photo op. Also taking this opportunity to thank our gracious partners,